Hello!
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 Hello! Indians have settled in Singapore since the founding of the modern port city in 1819. This gallery presents the diverse walks of life of early Indian settlers. Join my docents and I as we walk this gallery with you. Look out for QR codes in the gallery to follow the tour in the next gallery as well. In January 1819, the Sepoys were among the first Indians to arrive in Singapore together with Sir Stamford Raffles and William Farquhar. However, this was soon followed by an influx of commercial diasporas from within the Straits region, where older settled merchant communities thrived. In June 1819, Narayana Pillai, the first Indian we can name, arrived in Singapore from Penang. He was an influential merchant who had considerable influence with the East India Company. He played an important role as counsel for Indians and in the establishment of the Sri Mariamman Temple in Singapore. In the early 19th century, the Nathukote Nagarata Chettiars from Tamil Nadu also migrated to Southeast Asia. In Singapore, the earliest presence of Indian moneylenders can be traced to the 1820s, where the Chettiars established their operations along Chulia, Market and Malacca streets. They were the main source of private financing through medium and long-term credit, and their clientele included European property and plantation owners, Chinese businessmen, Malay royalty and farmers. They provided the seed money for entrepreneurship to flourish. This contributed to the rapid growth of Singapore as an important commercial hub of the region. The movement of Indian labour to the Straits settlements accelerated over the period 1867 to 1941. With the transfer of administration from the Bengal Presidency to the Colonial Office in London in 1867, agencies in Madras Presidency were appointed to source for labour on behalf of the Straits settlements. A Sikh police contingent, or SPC, was established in Singapore following their arrival from Punjab on 26 March 1881. These policemen were stationed all over Malaya to maintain law and order. The SPC was disbanded in 1945 at the end of World War II. In addition to the SPC, the Tanjong Pagar Dog Company maintained a dog police force comprising of Sikh recruits. Singapore was a penal settlement from 1825 to 1873. During this period, nearly 15,000 to 20,000 prisoners were sent here as convict labour. These labourers built some of Singapore's earliest architectural landmarks like the Istana, Horsburgh Lighthouse, Raffles Lighthouse, etc., as well as roads such as Thomson and Bukit Timah. Some of these prisoners were intellectuals who were anti-British. A convict draftsman, Bawaji Rajaram, even prepared plans for the St. Andrew's Cathedral and went on to pursue private architectural practice upon completion of his sentence. These bricks were recovered from an archaeological excavation conducted at the Cathedral of Good Shepherd in 2013 prior to its renovation. The excavation revealed remnants of floor and walls which were possibly part of this former convict station located at Bras Basah. Transported convicts in Singapore operated brick kilns till 1873 and produced sufficient quantities of bricks for all local public works at the time, as well as for export to Malacca. These bricks are rare archaeological finds presented in the gallery, reminding us of the long history Indians have had in Singapore. Having heard about some of these stories of hardship, come let us discover some tales of success encountered by early Indian merchants.
From hearing about early involuntary migration, I would like to tell you a little about voluntary trade diasporas that arrived in Singapore. Traders and merchants arrived in Singapore during the early 19th century and one of the earliest groups were the Tamil Muslims, or Chulias, from the Coromandel coast. They traded in a wide range of commodities, including textiles, gems, cattle, leather, tobacco, tin and areca nuts, and were also involved in water transport, as several of them owned ships and cargo boats. Did you know that Chulia Street in the Central Business District is named after this community? In addition to the Tamil Muslims, other Tamil traders from Velala, Mudaliar communities, Gujarati, Malabari and Parsi traders soon settled and transformed the Singapore River banks into a trading hub. Traveling between and trading with other colonial settlements, these merchants were instrumental in establishing networks within and beyond Asia. Several retail and department stores were set up by Ceylonese, Gujarati, Sindhi, Punjabi and Tamil Muslim traders along the Singapore riverfront, Market Street, Serangoon Road, Arab Street and High Street areas. These include Ora Masami Nadar & Co., P. Govindasamy Pillai Private Limited, popularly known as PGP stores, E.J. Matiwala & Co., Gyan Singh & Co., among others. Among the established jewelry and diamond businesses were B.P. De Silva & Co., Dawood Marika & Co., and K.M. Ali Mohammed & Co. Even the cattle trade along Serangoon Road, for instance, was controlled by a Tamil Muslim from Karaikal, Kader Sultan. Food businesses have also been an iconic area of contribution. Several restaurants selling adaptations of Indian food made to suit local tastes. If you enjoy food and history, do visit some of the oldest restaurants in the Little India precinct, such as the Ananda Bhavan and Kamala Vilas. The Indian Merchants Association was established in 1924 to foster greater unity among the Indian mercantile community and become a powerful commercial organization with an exclusive membership. In 1935, it was renamed the Singapore Indian Chamber of Commerce. I would like to tell you the story of Rajabali Jumaboy, who was the founding president of the Singapore Indian Association and the Singapore Indian Chamber of Commerce, a nominated member of the Legislative Council of Singapore and a Justice of the Peace. A spice trader with a family history of trade with East Africa, Rajabali Jumaboy migrated to Singapore from Kutch in Western India in 1916. He was a prominent businessman and patriarch of the now fourth-generation Jumaboy family business, who once owned the Scott's Holdings. It included the country's first managed mall, Scott's Shopping Centre on Orchard Road, and the country's first service apartments, the Ascot. R. Jumaboy and Sons were also shipping agents for the state of Madras, which transported passengers and cargo from Madras, present-day Chennai, to Singapore, as well for the Eastern Shipping Corporation Limited and its ship, the SS Jalagopal. As a Kutchi Khoja pioneer, he played a pivotal role in the success of Indian merchants in this region by improving the image of the Indian Merchants Association. He was one of the most prominent leaders and philanthropist of the Indian community in Singapore from 1920s to 1950s. Rajabali Jumaboy contributed to the construction of the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hall at Race Course Lane in Singapore in 1915. This is a rare photographic portrait of Rajabali Jumaboy from the collection of Amir Ali Jumaboy, his son. In the portrait, you see a very young Rajabali dressed in a Western attire, yet retaining an element of tradition with the pheta or headgear he is seen wearing. This was quite a popular trend among Gujarati Muslim merchants in Singapore. I love to put a face to a name when joining through the galleries and discovering the stories of early Indians in Singapore. So, I hope you appreciate the rare portraits showcased in this exhibition too.
I grew up in Singapore and I recall some of the sodas that were available back then. Fremrose and Phoenix are names that still ring a bell. It was only when I started guiding in IHC that I realized that these were soda water companies established by Indians. So I thought I would share the story about one of the pioneers behind these businesses. Navroji R. Mistry was a prominent Parsi entrepreneur. The Parsis are Zoroastrians from the province of Fars in Persia, who, escaping religious persecution, migrated to India in the 7th century. By the 18th century, the Parsis were involved in trade with China, dealing in spices, silk, opium, cotton, and tea. The Parsi traders returned to India influenced by the aesthetics of the Far East. They brought with them Chinese products, including porcelain and embroidered silk. Their culture is unique, influenced by their interaction with others, as seen in their adoption of the local Gujarati language as their own. Originally from Bombay, he arrived in Singapore in 1909. As an engineer, Mistry helped to construct the Keppel Wharves. He worked for PM Fremrose as a manager for Fremrose Aerated Waters in 1913, but left the company to establish the Phoenix Aerated Water Company in 1925. As Mistry had signed an agreement with Fremrose to not start a similar business after leaving the company, relations between the two became strained, and the matter was also taken to court, where the ruling was made in Mistry's favor. He made his fortune selling soda water in Singapore and Malaya. In 1931, Mistry acquired GH Cafe Limited and became its managing director. With his fortune, Mistry acquired the Caldecott Hill estate for over $900,000 after the Japanese occupation. Known as the godfather of the poor, Mistry donated a significant part of his wealth towards improvement of medical services in Singapore. The Mistry wing of the Singapore General Hospital, which housed the pediatric wards in the past and houses the National Heart Centre today, to which he donated $1 million, and Mistry Road in Tanjong Pagar are named after him. Mistry passed away in 1968 after a prolonged illness. In keeping with his philanthropic activities, he willed $1 million and half of his estate to charities in the region as well as in Bombay, while the remainder were inherited by his family. These Phoenix Aerated Waters, glasses and memorabilia are from Mistry's nephew Nosher Mistry, who has carefully preserved these objects. You can also see on display here a photograph of Mistry, a spade he received marking his donation to the Singapore General Hospital. Among this is the King's Commendation for Brave Conduct received by Mistry under the name Noel R. Mistry for services rendered to British prisoners of war in Malaya during the Japanese occupation. From these stories of merchants, it is now time to discover the lived experiences of early Indian women in Singapore at the next stop.
Having heard about some of the experiences of early Indian pioneers, you might be wondering when Indian women arrived in Singapore. Now, this is a fairly underdocumented narrative. However, at IHC, the curatorial team makes an effort to present some lesser-known stories of Indian women in early Singapore. Early colonial records listed Indian women mainly as penal inmates and plantation workers. But by the late 1920s, they accounted for 30% of the total Indian population in the Straits settlement. During this period, many Indian women were homemakers and contributed to community work. Some found employment as vendors, selling domestic wares, farm and homemade products, while others, such as Madame E. A. Ponamal, operated a money-lending business. The Indian and Ceylonese Ladies Club was established in 1931 as a social organization that sought to address women's concerns. In 1950, the Lotus Club and the Ladies' Union were merged to form the Kamala Club, named in memory of Pandit Nehru's late wife. The organization was instrumental in increasing awareness of women's rights. Since then, a number of women's associations have been established, and a women's charter was passed in 1961. In the colonial period, movement within the Crown colonies was commonplace, with former deterrents, like the crossing of the ocean, having become moot. Transience was a distinguishing characteristic of the migrants. French colonies in the region, like Saigon, were also home to migrants from the subcontinent. Renunciation of caste and communal leanings earned Indians the position of French subject. Such subject would take up employment in administrative and military capacities, traveling to French spheres of influence like Indochina. Movement of such communities to Singapore was not uncommon. Ambalige, a leading female musician and coordinator of Indian classical music at the Ladies' Union, later renamed Kamala Club, was born in Saigon and moved to Singapore as a young bride in 1933, when she was 14 years old. She was well versed in the playing of several musical instruments and played the violin for Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore when he visited Saigon. In May 1937, Ambalige organized and choreographed the musical events for the public performance held at Farrer Park to commemorate the visit of Pandit Nehru to Singapore and Malaya. For fundraising efforts organized by the Ramakrishna Mission, a troupe of young Tamil women musicians, including Ambalige, Lakshmi and Maomani, toured Malaya and gave vocal performances in 12 towns, raising a sum of $11,000. Ambalige also made a personal donation of $1,500 to the cause by selling her 60 sovereign gold kasumale. Ambalige's story is a truly inspirational one of a woman who was ahead of her times. Being French myself, I also thought it would be topical to share a lesser known aspect of migration. Did you know that Indians migrated not just from British colonial territories in Southeast Asia and India, but also from other colonial territories? They also migrated from French, Dutch, Danish and Portuguese colonies in India and Southeast Asia. Hence, they brought with them an added layer of diversity to their complex migrant profiles. For instance, due to the French influence in Saigon, Ambalige owned a barrette, a French-inspired gold hair clip studded with rubies. This barrette is now in the collection of the Indian Heritage Center. From hearing about Indian pioneers in the pre-war years, you're now going to journey onward to hear about the experiences of Indians during the World War II period.